On this day, the 3rd of October, 1952, Britain got the bomb. The explosion took place off the coast of Western Australia, and it meant that Britain was the third power to wield this weapon. The plan had been in place for quite a while. The research that went into it had been going on since before the Second World War. When Britain started its nuclear research, it was starting from scratch, but it had some of the most brilliant minds, and it had Canadian uranium. But during the early years of the Second World War, one thing it lacked was money. In Quebec in 1943, the Canadian Prime Minister, the British Prime Minister, and the American President met, and they agreed that they would all contribute towards what became known as the Manhattan Project. It was agreed that all research would be shared between the three countries, and that all would have access to the weapons when they became available. However, once the Second World War was over, the American Congress got wind of this secret agreement made in Quebec, and they did not like it one bit. And the United States refused to share the technology or the research. Clement Attlee, the Prime Minister from 1945, tried his best to get the Americans to share the nuclear information. But they refused, and so in 1946, he began the British nuclear program. It was believed that Britain needed to have its own deterrent and needed the bomb to remain as one of the great powers. It was Attlee who contacted the Australian Prime Minister at the time, Sir Robert Mingus. Sir Robert was very happy to help. He was himself described as British down to his bootstraps. He was a loyal man, and he would do whatever it took. So, the research was going forward, and in 1951, Sir Winston Churchill came to power again. After he achieved power, he inherited Clement Attlee's program, and he was obviously very supportive of it. And so, in 1952, 3rd of October, Britain joined the nuclear club. Australia, I'm quite sure, was hoping to be a part of this nuclear club as well. And back then it wasn't such a crazy idea. Countries such as Switzerland, Sweden, Spain, Canada, all had nuclear programs and were intent on building nuclear weapons as a deterrent, as defense against possible invasion, especially from the Soviet. But what is interesting is how the Americans didn't want to share the information that originally came from Britain, even though the agreement had been made. But then, a couple of years later, they decided to give the British the plans for nuclear submarines. So everything changed within 7 years. It's a bizarre thing to think about. And it's also interesting to think what could have happened if Britain actually did have the money? If they could have built the bomb themselves? They had started before the Second World War. The Americans only took 3-4 years to build the bomb. Could have seen nuclear war in Europe at the end of the Second World War. So maybe we should be thankful that they didn't have the money to build bombs, because perhaps a lot more cities would have been completely wiped out. And we've also got to think about how the Germans also had their initial research on the nuclear program. Never got very far though, never really a threat. I think Britain was more afraid of the German program because they knew what could actually be done with it. And the Germans never really put much effort or money into it at all. So, an interesting day. A great day, some would say. A terrible day, others would argue, especially if you're against nuclear weapons and the possibility of nuclear Armageddon. So, on this day, 3rd of October, 1952, the Brits got the bomb. And now there were 3.